The Galactic Empire was not known for its wisdom, nor for its sense of humor. It was known, rather tediously, for bureaucracy, ornamental uniforms, and a deeply ingrained belief that the galaxy belonged to those who shouted loudest and carried the shiniest plasma cannons. So, when General Varnox of the Rarmalac Dominion, a lizard-faced brute with the subtlety of a meteor, was assigned to patrol the far reaches of Sector G47, he took it as an insult. "Babysitting the Terrans," he spat through fanged teeth as his command cruiser coasted above the blue-green human colony of Haven's Reach. What a waste of Imperial firepower. The bridge crew didn't reply. One didn't reply to Varnox unless one wanted to be used as a motivational demonstration. He'd already crushed a junior officer's communicator underfoot just that morning. The Rarmalac were not subtle, and Varnox least of all. On the view screen, the small human shuttle glided through orbit. Unarmed. Civilian. Boring. A soft ping confirmed its manifest. 23 human juveniles, en route to a planetary heritage site. A school trip. Varnox narrowed his eyes. Scan them again. I don't trust it. Sir, scans show no armaments, no shielding. It is a school bus, sir, replied the scanner technician, voice trembling. Varnox's tongue flicked in irritation. He'd spent months with no action. His name was falling down the Empire's glory roster. A little strike, a show of dominance, might boost morale. And who would miss one Terran shuttle? They were vermin, by galactic standards. Target and fire a disabling shot. Tractor them in. Let's have a look at these little warriors. No one dared question him. The plasma bolt struck. The shuttle sputtered and died in orbit. It was reeled in with all the grace of a fishhook through a songbird. Varnox watched as the screen focused on the human faces within. Tiny, confused, some crying. One child stuck out her tongue. Another held up a finger. Varnox couldn't tell if it was defiance or some Earth salute. Pathetic, he muttered. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the galaxy, Captain Elias Mercer sipped lukewarm tea from a chipped ceramic mug shaped like a cat. His office aboard neutral diplomatic outpost Theta 9 was a cluttered mess of mismatched chairs, half-finished crossword puzzles, and human cultural artifacts, half of which he'd never bothered to explain to the aliens who brought them. A tentacled ambassador from the Galmal Confederacy was in the middle of describing his people's 7,000-year peace tradition, when the alert buzzed on Elias's console. He glanced at it. A single message blinked on screen. Terran school transport. Intercepted location. Haven's Reach status. Captured. Elias stared at the words for exactly 3 seconds, then placed his tea gently on the desk. Ambassador THRKZZ, forgive me, I just remembered I left my civilization's patience on the stove. Please excuse me. The ambassador blinked all 8 eyes in confusion. Elias was already gone. Outside his office, Elias walked with deceptive ease. He smiled at colleagues, nodded at passing diplomats, even paused to pet the ambassadorial corgi. But in his mind, every variable was already moving. He accessed secure comms. The line crackled. A voice, calm and female, answered. Earth Central. Authentication required. Mercer. Passcode 947 Sierra Tango. Firecracker. A pause. The voice lost its warmth. Firecracker confirmed. The line cut. Protocol Firecracker. It was the least aggressive-sounding name for a full mobilization order Earth had ever invented. Elias always found the name amusing. He stepped into the command center, where the AI liaison glanced up from monitoring interspecies gossip forums. Divert priority feeds. Issue a soft blackout on G47. Begin engagement prep for Quiet Fleet 9. I'll be en route within the hour. The AI's avatar, a young woman with impossibly shiny hair, frowned. That sector's under Empire patrol. They'll object. They can file a complaint in triplicate, Elias replied. We have children to retrieve. Somewhere on the Imperial cruiser, the children sat in a holding cell with padded seats and cartoon stickers still stuck to their jackets. The guards were unsure what to do with them. They'd expected fear. Maybe wailing. What they got was arguing over who got to use the bathroom first, and a heated debate about whether strawberry milk was superior to chocolate. One guard leaned in to shout something about silence. He was met with a well-aimed kick to the shin from a 7-year-old named Lucy. "My mom said don't touch me unless you want to see stars," she declared proudly. "Stars?" One guard chuckled. "You are in stars, little one." "Not like that," Lucy muttered, rubbing her foot. In the observation deck above, Varnox observed the display with increasing irritation. He tapped his claw on the railing, then turned to his adjutant. "Transmit a message to the Empire Council. Tell them I've apprehended potential insurgents." The adjutant hesitated. "Sir, that might not be well received. There is precedent." "Then delete the message logs. Make it look like a pirate hit," Varnox snarled. It would be his triumph. His secret. Back on Outpost Theta 9, panic was beginning to spread. Not among the humans, but the others. The venerable Thal, an ancient crustacean being whose species remembered the first human transmission centuries ago, nearly dropped his translator orb when he heard. "They took what?" "Human juveniles, Your Grace," said the attending ambassador. "One of the Empire's cruisers." Thal made a series of clicks and hisses that translated to, "May the stars preserve us all." On Earth, entire departments shifted gears. Files were pulled. Intelligence operatives received quiet pings. A file titled, "Do not open unless rule number 1 is broken," blinked to life in 17 offices. In a corner of deep space, hidden under light-bending stealth, Quiet Fleet 9 emerged. 30 human vessels, sleek and matte black, engines running silent, weaponry hidden beneath diplomatic housing. Elias stood on the command deck of the Harlequin's Grin, flagship of the fleet, now very much out of disguise. "Any response from the Empire?" he asked. "Nothing," replied the comms officer. "Either they're hiding it, or they're too stupid to recognize the storm they've summoned." Elias folded his hands behind his back. "Let's give them a chance to apologize. Politely." Aboard the Imperial cruiser, strange things began to happen. The lights dimmed for no reason. The ship's AI began to hum old Earth lullabies. Several security doors opened and closed by themselves. One toilet flushed non-stop for an hour. It was subtle at first. Just unnerving. Then came the whisper. A transmission broadcast into the command bridge. "General Varnox. This is Captain Elias Mercer of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. You have committed a breach of intergalactic convention. You have taken what is not yours. You have taken our young." Varnox sneered. "And what will you do, human diplomat? Send angry letters?" "I sent a letter once," Elias replied. "The planet it was addressed to no longer exists. But let's talk. Man to lizard. This is a military zone." "Yes," Elias said pleasantly. "And now it's a human one." The transmission ended. Every console on the bridge rebooted. The Imperial crew stared in horror as their systems began broadcasting coordinates to the humans. The cruiser's AI, now compromised, spoke with a gentle female voice. "It was unwise to scare the children." Then the lights died completely. Elias stood in the Harlequin's Grin, eyes sharp, voice calm. "Launch retrieval units. Non-lethal unless provoked. Prioritize emotional comfort. Also, bring juice boxes." His XO blinked. "Sir, if one of those kids cries, the wrath of Earth will seem merciful compared to what I'll do next." The retrieval squad landed aboard the Imperial cruiser silently. Drones disabled security systems with electromagnetic pulses and laughter recordings from Earth cartoons. Human operatives, wearing nothing but civilian garb and polite smiles, entered the detention block. One leaned toward a stunned alien guard and said, "Hello there. I believe you've misplaced something of ours." You're unarmed," the guard stammered. The human smiled wider. So were the children. In 22 minutes, every child was safely off the cruiser. Lucy gave a double thumbs up as she boarded the human shuttle. Varnox, pacing furiously, received a final message. It was a video. Elias Mercer, sipping tea on the bridge, looking directly into the camera. Thank you for your cooperation. This concludes the warning phase of our engagement. The screen cut to black. Varnox roared and slammed a clawed fist into the console. And far above, in silent orbit, Quiet Fleet 9 turned its attention to the heart of the Empire. The humans were no longer smiling. And the galaxy had just remembered why that rule number 1 existed in the first place. The Galactic Empire's High Council met in a chamber the size of a small moon, with walls lined by the preserved banners of extinct species and statues of emperors who had crushed rebellions with the push of a button. It was a place for the performance of power. Today, that performance was cracking. General Varnox stood in the center, armor gleaming, eyes narrow. His voice boomed through the hollow space. The Terran incident has been contained. No fatalities. No weapons retrieved. Their young have been returned. I acted decisively. Efficiently. As an officer of the Empire should. Silence. Then the voice of Counselor Delvier, a glistening jelly form, who usually avoided confrontation like fire avoided water. You attacked human juveniles, General. They were unharmed. And yet, 3 border stations are missing. Varnox waved a claw dismissively. Coincidence. Pirates. The Terrans are too primitive to operate beyond their colonies. From his elevated podium, the Thal representative slowly tapped one armored claw on his seat's armrest. It made a sound like a drumbeat in a mausoleum. You've triggered something we were warned never to touch. The room stirred, uncomfortable. Most had forgotten the ancient warnings. Stories of first contact, of the Terrans' unsettling ability to smile while setting traps, to speak gently while dismantling entire fleets. Their weapon was patience. Their arsenal was psychology. Varnox sneered. Old myths. We are the apex. Outside the council chamber, Elias Mercer entered through the Grand Diplomat's entrance, flanked by only 2 aides. Both human, both outwardly unarmed, both smiling far too politely for the tension their presence caused. He wore no armor, no ceremonial robes. Just a neat black suit and a travel-worn briefcase. He looked more like someone who'd gotten lost on the way to a PDA meeting than the man currently leading a shadow fleet. The council turned to regard him. His name echoed in nervous whispers. Varnox's jaw tightened. Elias bowed slightly. Honored council. I do apologize for the unexpected drop-in, but I thought it best to speak in person. After all, what's diplomacy without a bit of face-to-face sincerity? You have violated protocol, barked a counselor. Elias smiled. And yet, you abducted schoolchildren. So here we are, both breaking rules. Only difference is, mine come with cookies. He produced a tin from his briefcase and set it on the table. Chocolate chip. Warm. Fragrant. No one moved. I thought they might help ease tension, he said, voice disarmingly sincere. But I understand if you're not in the mood for sweets. You'll forgive me for not being in the mood for war either. Varnox stepped forward, towering over Elias. Your ship struck Empire outposts. Our children were threatened, Elias said softly. And you are lucky that's all we struck. You can't intimidate the council with charm, human. Elias's smile widened. Oh, I'm not trying to intimidate. That would imply I want you to feel afraid. I just want you to feel curious. The jelly-formed Delvier slid forward nervously. Curious? About what? About just how far we're willing to go for something as small as a child. The council chamber fell into a heavy silence. Several members exchanged glances, uncertain whether this mild-mannered man in a modest suit was bluffing. Varnox did not hesitate. I demand sanctions. Reprimands. This human should be arrested and tried for unauthorized military action. Elias turned to him, gaze still genial. General Varnox. May I ask you a question? Varnox snorted. Speak. If you broke into a lion's den and stole a cub, and the lion came looking for you, would you demand that the lion be arrested for trespassing? Varnox's lips curled into a snarl. Humans are not lions. No, Elias said. We're worse. Lions don't hold grudges. He let that hang in the air a moment. Then he added cheerfully, But they do make excellent mascots. Fierce and dignified. Bit dramatic, but we like that. Behind the mask of humor, the implication was obvious. The council descended into murmured debate. Elias sipped water from a crystal decanter, like he hadn't just dropped a veiled threat that could ignite a war. His two aides stood still behind him, exchanging no words, only glances. They didn't need to speak. They had their orders. Later that day, back aboard the Harlequin's Grin, Elias removed his jacket and loosened his collar, revealing the faint outline of a command insignia beneath. His XO approached, datapad in hand. The Empire isn't broadcasting the council meeting. They're suppressing panic. Good, Elias replied. The fear will spread faster in silence. Let them wonder what else we're not saying. The XO frowned. Fleet 9 has completed its positioning. All Empire frontier systems within reach are now ghosted. Energy siphons deployed. We've got eyes and ears on everything. They won't be able to sneeze without us tracking the molecular shift. Elias took a seat, eyes distant. Have the council received the files? Yes. We sent them under the heading Diplomatic Clarifications. And? Councillor Delvier had a nervous system event. He's recovering in a nutrient vat. Thal requested a private conversation. The others are, well, panicking. Elias nodded, unsurprised. The files hadn't been overtly threatening, just photographs really. Simple, well-composed images of school events, children with missing teeth, messy art projects, birthday parties. And behind each photo, humans. Watching. Smiling. Identified in the metadata as off-duty operatives, intelligence officers, veterans, and Black Ops specialists. All of them parents. A quiet message had been embedded in the file's code. If you scare them, we stop holding back. Elias stretched and stood again. Let's pay Varnox a more personal visit. Varnox's flagship, the Fury of Triath, was docked at a supply station orbiting an unremarkable gas giant. Elias boarded alone. No weapons, no escort. The hangar bay was sterile and grand, like everything Imperial. Varnox was waiting, armored and sneering. You're bold, Mercer. I try. You think you can stroll onto my ship and intimidate me? No, Elias said calmly. I came to give you something. He extended a small box. Confused, Varnox took it, opened it, and stared at the contents. A child's drawing. Crayon lines. Bright colors. A stick figure man labeled Captain Eli, and a big green lizard labeled Mr. Grumpy. Varnox looked up in disbelief. Lucy drew that. She wanted you to have it. Said you seemed sad. Varnox bared his teeth. Is this meant to be mockery? No, Elias said, folding his hands. It's a gesture. A moment to realize you've crossed into something you don't understand. I'm giving you a chance to step back from the line. Varnox tore the drawing in half. I don't take threats from apes in suits. Elias sighed. You should. He turned and walked away. Within hours, the Fury of Triath lost main comms. Navigation froze. Internal temperatures dropped below optimal. Its engine matrix began randomly fluctuating. Engineers scrambled, only to find their schematics replaced by images of Lucy's class on a field trip, labeled with delightful captions like, "Learning about terraforming," and "We love our solar system." It was psychological warfare at its most absurd. And most effective. Empire technicians couldn't fix the ship. They couldn't trace the intrusion. All they found were smiling children and helpful factoids about friendship and core meltdown procedures. Varnox ordered a full retreat to safer territory. But by then, no territory was safe. Human recon squads, posing as merchant vessels, began ferrying aid to Empire border colonies. Supplies, food, medicine. They were welcomed with cautious gratitude, until their real purpose was revealed, spreading a new program. An educational initiative. Harmony through shared history, a Terran perspective. It was inoffensive at first, simple videos, infographics, colorful slides. Until the lesson plans reached Module 4. What happens when you scare a human child? The lesson was dramatized, slightly exaggerated, wildly popular, and terrifying. Empire citizens began protesting, not against the humans, but against their own leadership. The first riots broke out on Varnock's controlled worlds. A former captain defected to Earth, citing moral disgust and personal survival. Back aboard Harlequin's Grin, Elias read the reports with faint amusement. "We haven't fired a single weapon," his XO noted. "Exactly," Elias replied. "Nothing is more frightening than an enemy who smiles while you bleed." He took another sip of tea. "Prepare the public statement. We're going to offer peace." The statement was brief, transmitted to every Empire-aligned world. To the honorable citizens of the Galactic Empire. Humanity bears no ill will to the vast majority of your people. We seek peace, progress, and mutual respect. However, if you continue to support leaders who violate our most sacred code, the safety of our young, then we will not hesitate to correct that mistake. Thoroughly. This is not a declaration of war. This is a promise. We are very polite. Until we're not. Warmest regards. Elias Mercer, Captain, Terran Diplomatic Corps. It spread like fire. By the end of the cycle, Varnox was called back to the council. Not in honor. In disgrace. He entered the chamber again, but this time, the seats were not filled with disdainful eyes. They were filled with fear. Del Va floated in his nutrient tank. Thal had donned ceremonial war armor, a sign he hadn't worn since the Collapse Wars. Half the council chambers were dark, their representatives either fleeing or hiding. The chief counselor rose. "General Varnox, you've brought the Empire to the brink." "I acted in defense of our honor," Varnox growled. "You acted in arrogance." Before Varnox could protest, the central display lit up. A final image from the Terrans. Lucy in her school uniform, waving at the camera. She was holding a plush toy version of Varnox, complete with a detachable tail and a grumpy face. Her voice followed, cheerful and unbothered. "Hi. Thank you for the ride, Mr. Varnox. I'm home now. My teacher says you're going to learn about consequences soon. Bye-bye." The screen faded to black. No one laughed. Not even the jelly being. And as the chamber sat in frozen silence, Elias Mercer's voice echoed through their private diplomatic channels. "See you soon." The stars were quiet, too quiet for the Galactic Empire's liking. Somewhere in the far reaches of the Orion Spiral, 3 relay stations blinked off in rapid succession. No explosions, no debris, just silence, like someone had gently placed a finger over their lights and whispered, "Shoo." It was the kind of disappearance that kept admirals up at night, not because of what was lost, but because of what hadn't shown up in its place. No signatures. No messages. No claims. Just, gone. At Central Command on Charthack Prime, Admiral Zelvin paced before the intelligence display. His wings twitched in agitation, a reptilian trait he normally kept well hidden. Data flickered in chaotic clusters. Patrols rerouted themselves. Supply convoys were vanishing without so much as a distress signal. "Explain," he snapped. The communications officer, a frog-faced linguist whose skin paled from green to gray, stammered. "We don't know. It's like someone rewrote the laws of physics around them. No warnings. No leaks." Zelvin tapped his talon against the screen, again and again. "We're being hunted." Across the galaxy, Elias Mercer stood calmly aboard the Harlequin's Grin, watching the chaos unfold. His arms were crossed, his expression neutral, like a math teacher waiting for students to realize the answer had been in the margin all along. The bridge was silent save for the quiet hum of computations, and the occasional update from AI projections tracking the psychological collapse of the Empire's outer defenses. "Fleet status?" Elias asked without turning. "All ships cloaked and in position. Perimeter softlocks complete. We've compromised a third of their comm channels. They still think their networks are secure," his XO responded. "Good," Elias said, almost whispering. "Then let's show them what insecurity really feels like." The plan was simple. Not flashy. Certainly not loud. Humanity didn't need shock and awe to dominate. They preferred the slow burn, like a smile lingering just a second too long, like laughter with something sharp behind it. Over the next 72 hours, the Empire hemorrhaged logistics and intelligence faster than they could patch holes. Orbital way stations began receiving shipments of medical equipment laced with encryption worms. Empire tax collectors logged onto their ledgers to find them filled with Terran children's books, each chapter labeled as a different offensive tactic. One station discovered its entire operating system had been replaced with a recreation of an elementary school interface. The administrator tried to reboot. Instead, the screen displayed, "Welcome to Human Module. Sharing is caring, but not with kidnappers." It wasn't long before panic started to ripple, not among the citizens, but the command ranks. These were not attacks in the traditional sense. No plasma strikes, no space battles. Just sabotage, infiltration, and the slow, undeniable realization that the enemy already knew their passwords. In the Empire's 5th Sector Command, a senior general named Korik convened an emergency summit. His voice, low and gravelly, reverberated through the council chamber as he spoke. "We are under information siege. This is not conventional warfare. The humans are unraveling us from the inside. Quietly. Deliberately." Another officer snorted. "They're soft. They're diplomats. They eat cheese on bread and sing songs about community." Korik threw a data pad across the room. It embedded into the wall. "They are winning." At that exact moment, Fleet 9 launched Operation Candlewick. It was not a battle plan. It was a psychological directive. Use only civilian fronts, no weapons drawn, and never lie. Just let the truth, exposed gently and with human charm, do the damage. A human vessel registered as a mobile relief clinic arrived at a military moonbase to distribute aid. Officers were hesitant but allowed it, due to humanitarian clauses in their own intergalactic law. The medics treated minor ailments, handed out thermal blankets, and gave out home-printed Terran books, family photos, children's essays, and detailed logs of every war crime committed by General Varnox over the last decade. No accusations. No demands. Just facts. Delivered with warm smiles and soft-spoken words. The next morning, half the base defected. Meanwhile, Elias took a private audience with Thal, the oldest living council member, and perhaps the only one with a memory long enough to remember the first silence, what humans called their quiet years, a period where they observed the galaxy without engaging. They had watched, listened, mapped behavior. They had learned everything. "You warned them," Elias said. "You told them about us." "I did," Thal replied through the translator, his voice low and heavy with sedimented age. "They laughed. They're not laughing anymore." "No. But they will scream before the end." Elias tilted his head. "We're not interested in screaming, Thal. We just want them to stop believing they can do what they want without consequence. We want them to remember they're not the only ones who know how to be dangerous." Thal's gaze narrowed. "Are you?" "No," Elias said, sipping from a flask. "We're just the only ones who enjoy pretending we aren't." Varnox, now forced back into the field to salvage his pride, rallied the Fourth Armada. He painted his ships with ancient war sigils, declared a renewed campaign against the Terran virus, and sent out a mass declaration of strength. It didn't take long for half his ships to go dark. No attacks. No explosions. Just lights out. He received a data packet sent from one of the vanished ships. Inside, a video of his own training facility, every file, every flaw, every secret corridor, filmed from multiple angles. Along with it came a note. "We let you build it. We helped draft your structural code. You didn't think those shared development templates were charity, did you?" Varnox lost 5 more ships before realizing what the rest of the Empire was already beginning to accept. The humans were not at war. They were winning something far more intimate: credibility. On the edge of the Polaris cluster, Elias walked through the ruins of an abandoned Empire listening post. The walls still bore the slogans of a military campaign long since forgotten. Statements of power, dominance, subjugation. He knelt and ran a hand along a wall etched with claw marks. Children's names were carved there now. The operatives had found the place empty, save for a data archive loaded with trophies from the school shuttle's brief internment. The humans hadn't just retrieved the kids. They tracked every moment, every insult, every unkind touch. They had recorded it all. And they were showing it to the galaxy. Back at command, Elias watched as sectors once firm in their loyalty to the Empire began broadcasting neutrality statements. Some even offered human embassies full diplomatic status, citing recent developments in parental response doctrine. He couldn't help but laugh. "Have we become the galactic equivalent of a suburban mom with a vendetta?" asked his aide, a wiry woman named Dree with a fondness for sarcasm and stun grenades. Elias nodded. "That's not inaccurate." Dree shrugged. "We could start wearing aprons. Call it Operation Bake Sale." "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," Elias replied. "We've still got one piece left. Varnox. He thinks this is still about retribution. He doesn't understand it's about memory." Elias stood from his chair and stared out the viewport, where distant stars flickered like nervous pupils. He wondered for a moment if Varnox would ever grasp the point of it all. Not the strike teams or sabotage, not the elegant unraveling of command structures or the collapse of military doctrine. No, the point was simpler. Earth had been patient. Gracious, even. It had accepted decades of ridicule, of dismissal, of jokes about its backwater status. But there was a line. And Varnox had stepped over it with both feet. The final act began with a whisper through the comms. "Children evacuated from secondary colonies. Repeat, all minors are safe." The restraint could now be lifted. Elias gave the order. Quiet Fleet 9 deactivated stealth and appeared, one ship at a time, in the skies above 13 key Empire planets. No fire. No threats. They just hovered. Watching. Waiting. The message was clear. We've arrived. And we brought memory with us. Within hours, entire legions stood down. Varnox, alone aboard a crippled command ship, received the last communication. A child's voice again. Not Lucy this time. A boy, maybe 10. "Hey. Remember me? I was the one who had the sticker on his backpack. You said I was small for a soldier. I'm not a soldier. I'm just a kid. But my big sister says you're going to be real sorry. She doesn't lie much." The feed cut. And in the silence, Varnox understood, finally, what had bled from the Empire. Not metal. Not soldiers. Not capital. Reputation. They had believed the humans to be clowns in polite suits, bearing gifts and smiles and awkward jokes. What they hadn't seen, what they couldn't see, was that the jokes, the awkwardness, the clumsy charm had all been a layer. A soft one. Like a blanket over a bear trap. Elias Mercer stood once more on the bridge of the Harlequin's Grin, as news came in. Command stations defecting, generals resigning, citizens protesting. The bleeding had become a flood. "Should we push?" Dree asked. Elias watched the stars. "No. Let them come to us now. Let them crawl." And they would. Because now, the galaxy had learned what it meant to scare a human child. And worse. What happened when humanity smiled and decided to do something about it. The stars were not aligned, they were silent. Dead silent. Not the stillness of peace, but the breath-holding hush that came before the drop of a guillotine. Throughout the Empire, broadcasts ceased. Ships went idle. Border alarms flickered and fell quiet, overridden not by force but by permissions. Administrative systems, systems the Empire had believed untouchable, now bore the Terran seal, blinking cheerfully with updates like, "Redundant military expenditures. Eliminated. You're welcome." No one had heard from General Varnox in days. Elias Mercer stood at the center of it all, poised, not triumphant but patient. He looked more like a tired school principal at the end of a long parent-teacher conference than the man who had just orchestrated the largest psychological dismantling of an empire in known history. His suit was still black, still neatly pressed. His hair, now streaked with silver, remained meticulously combed. The only change was in his eyes. He was no longer smiling. Beside him stood Dree, her stance loose but alert, like a coiled spring coated in sugar. She adjusted the holofeed controls, then glanced at him.
Are you sure about this?
Once we go live, there's no walking it back. Elias gave a shallow nod. It's time. The transmission lit up across 1,000 systems. Not with thunder. Not with drama. But with the face of a little girl. Lucy. Her hair was in braids. A small bandage sat on her forehead. She waved at the camera, holding a stuffed octopus with one arm. Hi! She chirped. I'm Lucy. You probably remember me. I got a little scared when the big lizard took us. But my teacher says when people make bad choices, they should say sorry. That's what I came to say. But he didn't say sorry. He growled a lot. So now, well, now he has to sit in time out. She grinned. The screen cut to black. Then Elias appeared. He didn't look amused. This is not vengeance. It's education, he said. For decades, humanity has accepted its place as a quiet neighbor. We asked for nothing. We offered friendship. We shared everything, except one thing. Our tolerance for violence against our young. He paused. The room behind him came into focus. Command staff, AI overlays, fleet movement readouts. It was all too calm. What you have witnessed over the last 30 days was not an attack. It was a field test. Not of weapons, but of will. We knew one day someone would forget rule number 1. So we prepared. We trained. We embedded. We waited. His voice didn't rise. If anything, it softened. You were the test subjects. In the war room aboard the Fury of Triath, now little more than a drifting relic of Varnox's hubris, the few remaining bridge crew stared blankly at the transmission. The security chief, sweating through his tunic, whispered, "Sir, they've breached the mainframe. Again." Varnox said nothing. "They've overridden life support in lower decks. Half the ship's gravity stabilizers are offline." Still nothing. "Sir?" Varnox turned slowly, claws clenched. "Leave," he said. The crew fled. He stood alone. Armor dented. Glory gone. His reflection in the cracked command console barely resembled the warrior he once believed himself to be. He had mocked the humans. Dismissed them. Now their children haunted his systems, their laughter echoing through his halls like spirits in a tomb. A chime sounded. A docking alert. Elias Mercer had arrived. He stepped aboard the Fury of Triath without security, without ceremony. Just him, a briefcase, and a thin air of inevitability. He walked the halls of the once feared dreadnought like a tourist admiring a failed museum. Burnt terminals. Hijacked displays. Notes in crayon left behind by recovered children. The bridge doors parted. Varnox stood at the far end, back to him. Elias approached slowly. "You had every chance." Varnox did not turn. "You would have done the same." "No," Elias said. "We would have observed. And waited. And if we had to strike, we'd do so knowing why. You acted out of boredom. Ego. That's not strategy. That's an itch. You're humans. You're weak." "No," Elias said quietly. "We're deliberate." Varnox spun. Rage twisted his scaled face. "Do it then. End it." Elias tilted his head. "You misunderstand. We don't end things. We remember them. And we make sure everyone else does too." From his case, he removed a data crystal. "On this chip is everything you did. Every insult. Every moment of abuse. Every frightened breath of every child. You're not going to die, Varnox. You're going to live, as a cautionary tale. We're going to play your story on every major world, every night. With bedtime narration." Varnox charged, claws outstretched. He never reached him. Dree stepped from the shadows. She struck once, precise, efficient. Varnox crumpled to the deck, paralyzed. She leaned down and whispered, "It's not polite to interrupt bedtime stories." Later, aboard Harlequin's Grin, Elias delivered his final transmission. "To the Empire and to the rest of the galaxy. This concludes our response. No territory will be claimed. No planets taken. We have no interest in dominion. We do, however, require an update to galactic law." He held up a single-page document. It had one sentence. Rule number 1. Never, ever attack a human child. Dree handed him a cup of tea as he stepped back from the camera.
Think they'll sign it?
They already have, Elias replied. And they had. In less than 12 hours, over 300 species ratified the amendment. Some did so out of genuine understanding. Most out of pure, unfiltered fear. Elias sat in his quarters, alone, lights dimmed. He watched a live feed of the night sky over Earth, a slow, drifting time-lapse of stars moving over quiet cities. The planet looked so small, so fragile. And yet, it had brought an empire to its knees, not through war, but through memory. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. In a classroom on Haven's Reach, Lucy sat with her classmates, watching the end of the story. Her teacher turned off the holoscreen and asked, "What do we say?" Lucy raised her hand. "Thank you for keeping us safe." And in the stars beyond, the galaxy whispered its reply, not with applause, not with celebration, but with compliance. Fear had done its job. Respect had replaced it. And in the silence that followed, humanity resumed sipping tea and laughing quietly and pretending, once again, to be harmless. But the galaxy would never forget. Not again. Not after this. Not after the lesson.